Good to be here live.
Absolutely. And if you're new to the podcast, you're new to our work, we help consulting firms solve a common growth challenge every week. This week, we're going to talk about how to win clients on LinkedIn through authority positioning. But first of all, a bit of a brief intro. Greg, can you tell us about you and your company?
Yes, well, my company is Business Flight Path, and we work with owners of professional service firms, consultants, coaches, advisors, helping them to become the authority in their field. We have a program called the Strategic Authority Marketing Program, which helps people identify who their premium level clients are, also how to differentiate themselves from their competitors, and then how to create an attraction system to generate leads and convert those leads into clients.
Fantastic. I'm Andy Marmont, as I said earlier. I'm CEO and founder of Concurve Content Marketing. We help consulting firms generate consistent quality leads and increase customer value in this new digital economy. So let's start with LinkedIn. And I know it's a big topic for everyone. If you're watching or listening, you want to use LinkedIn to get new clients. Today, what we're going to do is basically talk through probably the three key areas where we think consulting firms can get a lot of success from, I guess, the three accelerators. We'll share some stories about what's worked and what hasn't from our own experiences and from our clients. And also, we're here the whole way to take your questions. So if you've got a question, please comment in the chat and we will make sure to get to it over the next 20, 25 minutes. Now, first of all, Greg, so LinkedIn, as a consulting firm, let's look at a bit of a high-level overview. Why is it important to be on LinkedIn, and what's stopping us from winning clients?
Well, I think LinkedIn is a very important space for most consultants to be in, particularly in the B2B space, which I guess most consultants operate in that area. And because there's a huge percentage of decision makers in businesses that are on LinkedIn. So just being in that space is typically also the first point of reference for someone. Even if you're being introduced to somebody, they're probably going to look you up on LinkedIn, and probably your website as well. But LinkedIn often comes up the top of any search through Google, and so you need to be there and have the appropriate profile there that actually resonates with your target market. And I think, as you asked, why don't we tend to generate enough or more leads through LinkedIn? And I think that's the first error I see many people making, is their profile reads more like a CV than a sales page. And I guess that's a legacy of why LinkedIn was developed, and it typically was a place to put your CV, and it was laid out in that structure. And a lot of us have just fallen into the program of fill it out the way everyone else fills it out. But you can utilize LinkedIn much more effectively if you regard it as a marketing tool and a sales page rather than a place to put your CV and experience.
Yeah, that's a really good distinction, Greg. I think the approach for a lot of consulting firms, ideally, if you've been running your firm for a while now, then you've got a lot of expertise already. So I think that when it comes to winning work in the future, the opportunity is really to have a strong digital footprint, because as we know, Gartner released a report recently, sort of 2025 B2B challenges and B2B growth. One of the things they said was that by that stage, 72% of customers are going to do online research before they even decide to speak to a human. So if you're not primed and you have a really strong digital footprint, and we start with the LinkedIn profile, then you're really going to lose out to your competitors who are going to be more savvy in that space. So I think you're right that the profile needs to be more about how you can help the customer or the potential customer, as opposed to a long list of your achievements and awards. And I know also, Greg, you like to focus on using the profile to talk about that. Can you just share maybe a couple of insights around how we'd need to think about our profile?
Well, your profile needs to be professional for a start. There's three elements of the profile that I think are very important, and that's first of all the banner, which is the header over the top, and then your image. So having a professional photo image there is really important, where people can see that you're serious about what you're doing. You're not sort of having a selfie in a party as your profile photo, but then utilizing your banner with not just your brand name, not just your business name, but having a message embedded in that banner as to what you do, who you serve. So you're really able to attract the attention of your ideal clients when they actually land on your LinkedIn profile. Then the introduction or header section, again, a lot of people make the mistake of just putting their title, their role, and there's valuable real estate there that you can use to embed a marketing message. So focusing on who you serve again and what problems you solve for them is a really effective way to present yourself there. Then in the about section, you've got quite a lot of opportunity to really spell out how you can serve your ideal clients, identify who they are again, what problems they have and how you can serve them, rather than just spelling out the experience you've had, or as I see a lot of people doing, making it all about them instead of their client. There's also the content piece as well, but that's almost a separate topic in itself. So I'll wait to talk about that part.
Yeah, I think I guess a takeaway there for me, Greg, is really use your profile like it's a marketing brochure. So people are going to be searching for your type of expertise, particularly if you've got a niche. So make sure your profile in the headline is specific to the type of person you want to attract and the sort of value that you offer. But also in your profile, make sure that you reference the sorts of outcomes that you do and also the area of expertise. So it's really a chance to have not just a reference point, but also as an inbound tool. We want to use that as our first piece of research the customer does. They go to your LinkedIn profile because that will come up probably more. It will come up first before they go to your website. So that's probably the first thing. Now, we know that the next thing is really, well, okay, that's great, Greg and Andy. How do we then leverage that from a leads perspective? And I think where consulting firms get unstuck is really the next piece, which is the approach to lead generation. And we're both seen and experienced, and our clients and also ourselves, we've had a lot of testing and measuring and what actually works. So there's some fundamentals that we want to go through. I mean, from your perspective, Greg, what works when it comes to the, I guess you call it like the outbound or the connection approach?
Yeah. And before I answer that, perhaps let me invite questions from the audience. And if you have any questions or comments, even, what are your challenges in this area? We'd love to know that and be able to respond specifically to your queries. But what I see in the outbound outreach in terms of connection and messaging in the direct messages is two sides. One side is the spammers who are, really hitting you in the face with often their initial connection message or, their first follow-up message, which is, here's who I am, here's what I do, here's the way I'd like to help you, and let's get on a call. Typically, that's a big put off on LinkedIn. It really goes down like a lead balloon, and it really just is almost anti the whole LinkedIn philosophy and aspect of what the way I see LinkedIn is it's just like a big networking room. So in a networking environment, you don't go up and preach to people about what you're doing. It's not like, hey, look at me, aren't I great?
Yeah.
You've got to get to know someone first, which is a great philosophy, but then I've seen people do the opposite and really just make connections and, you know, and do nothing, you know, like create a vacuum, let's connect, but then there's no conversation. It'd be like walking up to someone in a network meeting, shaking hands, saying, hello, I'm Greg, and walking away. And so what's going on there? So what about the conversation bits that link from there on? And I think this is where it's about getting to know someone first and really being able to identify them. So the more personal you can make the follow-up conversation in terms of, you know, what you see on their LinkedIn profile, maybe their website, checking out, you know, if they look like either a potential client or a collaboration partner, then there's a reason to continue the conversation. So being genuine about that too, you know, don't try to hide your agenda, you know, which a lot of people do, you know, try to say some nice things and hope that we can get to a situation where we can start to sell. But be genuine about what you see, you know, where you want to take the conversation. You know, it could be, or let's look at how we can collaborate, or, you know, these are the sort of clients I work with and the challenges they have. You know, if that's something you'd like to discuss, well, let's take it to the next stage. And I think that's the really effective way to use the LinkedIn direct messaging component.
I love that. And I'll just firstly say we also, if you can imagine, if you're listening or if you're watching, but Greg and I both are wearing the exact same outfit. We're wearing a blue blazer and we're wearing a white shirt. So it's not by design or by default, but I thought, yes, hats off if you've noticed that. I think what you say is exactly right, Greg. You know, there's I think people are now, especially on LinkedIn, they're sort of, I guess their sensors are up. If you open a connection message and just try and sell them straight away, then it's just going to turn them off. I think what I've learned around, first of all, the actual request, so connecting requests, if you're really focused on who you want to connect with, there are ways to do it at scale. But I think the main message there is that you're, as you said, you're looking to be genuine. So if you're looking to share ideas, like something that I've felt has always been effective is I'm always looking to share ideas and connect with like-minded, you know, business owners. And that kind of thing sort of resonates, I think, because really they could be a potential client, but 98% of the time they're probably not in the zone or not ready right now. But hey, maybe in 6 months and 12 months, maybe they know someone who might be, or as you say, maybe there might be a collaboration down the track, or hey, there might just be a good connection to have, 5, 10 years, who knows? So that's a really good sort of stepping stone. So yeah, connecting and engaging. And I think the other aspect to, once you've actually got the connection, is then it's about starting a conversation in a great way. And, you know, there's different things that I've learned, and like I always feel like if you're going to stand out, then do something that no one else is doing. And I've been doing voice messages. So you can, there's actually an option on the LinkedIn app if you want to do this, but you can actually leave an audio message instead of doing an introduction message. And the amount of people that come to me and say, wow, that's a really great touch, or I didn't know that was the, because you're actually being personal about it. And you ask, you from an online point of view, you're actually striving to make a connection. And I think that's something that's really going to get you that cut through, is being able to be genuine about what you do. So when it comes to then opening a conversation, opening a dialogue, think about ways to, again, we're not trying to sell because we haven't even spoken to this person before, but we are looking to maybe get to know them a little bit more. So maybe it's about, tell me about who your target market is, or who you're looking to collaborate with, or, what's sort of on the horizon for you. Like, what are you, something that's sort of non-invasive, but again, gives them a chance to share about, what they're about. So I don't know how have you found that?
Yeah, well, I love that, Andy. Yeah, definitely voice messaging makes you stand out. I've actually also used video, just have a little link to a Loom video or something of that nature, where it's personalized, direct to the person, so that they get to see you as well, and you're talking directly to them about, something personal to them. So you definitely stand out when you do that. And, when I've experienced that as well from some people, and very few people actually do it.
Yeah.
And, I don't know why, because it takes a bit of time to set it up, and, which is why I've only done it a few times. But when I did it, I got a really good client as a result of it. So, it's definitely worth the time and the effort to do those things over and above the norm.
Yes.
And, really, create more engagement with the people you actually want to talk to.
Absolutely, make an impression. That's a really big piece. I thought we'd just sort of pause for a second there in terms of any questions that you have. Please type away in the comments. But something that we did have a query or a comment, and this was around of one of the polls that you did, Greg. You asked your audience about what your specific challenges on LinkedIn are, and there was some really interesting results around what the priorities were. So could you share maybe just briefly, what did you find out there?
Well, probably about half or almost 50% of the responses were about how to generate quality leads in that respect. So it's it goes right back to the start of the process. And I think, that what I've found, and as you alluded to earlier, Andy, the way that people engage with salespeople these days is typically through the internet, and 70% of the sales journey is done through internet search before they want to talk to a salesperson. So the real opportunity in generating more leads comes by playing your part in that sales journey. So really, and LinkedIn is a great place to play that part, because you can create content that is applicable to your clients. And again, the biggest mistake I see most people make is the content they produce is almost salesy content. It's all about here am I, here's what I do, here's these are the services we provide. It's self-promotion rather than educational type content. People don't want to know what you do until they know what you're capable of and is it relevant to them. So when we create content on LinkedIn, the sort of content that gets engagement is content that's helpful to people and actually gives them a clue on how to succeed or to overcome their problems or challenges. So the sort of content we need to be producing to generate the start of that lead flow and engagement process needs to be focused on your client's problems rather than on you and what you do. So that's a real key to starting to generate leads, and particularly inbound leads. When you produce content that's relevant to your clients and is helpful to your clients, they can start to learn about how to solve the problem, and they start to see you as the authority because you're the one who's starting to educate them and show them the way forward.
Absolutely. The comments, the content is such a big part, and I just want to, I'll come back to that because it's really important. Sarah has been kind enough to ask a couple of questions. The first is, at what point are you adding those video or audio touches in, earlier or later in the process? Great question, Sarah. I've experimented in different methods, but I feel like the most the best way to do it is right at the start, because you want to create an instant. You've only got a very small window to get that build that relationship. People move on. People not on LinkedIn all the time. So if you can think of what's going to be the easiest way for you to make an impression. And so that's why I'd go with video audio at the start. What do you reckon, Greg?
Yeah, I agree. As early as you can. However, the time factor does play a part here. So in the way that I've used it, I've had a series of written messages that I try to use to engage and get some response from my connections. But where I've used the video effectively was at the point where it's almost like, well, last resort. If you're not going to engage with me, then here's my last ditch effort. So creating the video and talking to them and say, well, we've had a bit of interaction, but I'd really love to talk to you. So I'm coming on video to show you who I am and that I'm a real person and not some spammer. And if you'd like to engage, let's talk. And that was effective for me when I did it that way. So
that's really good.
3 or 4 messages before that, and then use the video as the last ditch. Yeah.
Fantastic, Greg. Well, thank you, Sarah.
Sarah's got
come back to that. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. So Sarah asks, a common piece of advice I've often seen is get your leads off LinkedIn and onto your own pipeline system ASAP. What's your take on that? Well, I'll let you take this one to start with, Greg. Yeah. What do you reckon?
Well, I think you can't sell on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is about initiating a relationship. You need to be able to take it offline or off LinkedIn to actually continue the conversation. So there can be a number of ways you do that. Ideally, the way most consultants get business is by talking to people, having a real live conversation. It might be face-to-face or it might be on Zoom, much more of that these days. So it's about getting people into that sort of conversation as quickly as you can. Sometimes that can be as quick as a couple of messages backwards and forwards and, let's jump on for a 15-minute introductory conversation. Or it might be there's some content that I think would be useful for you to read or watch. Here's a link to get hold of that. And so providing a link, and usually that could be an opt-in link that gives them or gets them onto your database so they can get your emails from there on. So a couple of ways to go about that, but ideally, get that conversation as quickly as you can.
Yeah, and to add to that, Greg, what's worked for me, Sarah, is I find that you really ask the question, if what you're doing is going to be valuable, then why don't we jump on a 10 or 15-minute call to see if or how I can help. And so there's those 2 ways. One, you ask them to download something or engage in something. So basically go on the database. But if there's intent, if there's certain need, then it's offer something. But the reason why, don't just say, well, let's catch up, but what are you going to cover? And often it's a short window and have an outcome. So great question, Sarah. So we were just sort of touching on, Greg, our last point around the 3 pieces, the 3 accelerators to consistently win clients on LinkedIn. The first was having that profile. The second was the outreach, the connections, messages, and the third piece is content. So something that I think a lot of people don't think about is actually the comments. And comments is something that, again, if you want to stand out, then use some comments, because comments, they are additional pieces of content. So it's a chance for you to add value and show your expertise in a thoughtful way. But secondly, it also raises your visibility. So if you make a comment on someone's profile, maybe someone you want to potentially do some work with, then they'll see it, and then it will raise, like, they'll see more of your content because you've contributed to them. So I think that LinkedIn works in that sort of way. Yes, you can have that sort of passive activity, which is your content that you post on your profile page, but also if you're looking to warm up your clients, which is something that we talk about often on this podcast, is leave a thoughtful comment. I mean, I remember I was speaking to someone through the messages, and they said, look, not right now, we're doing really, really well. Anyway, I took time to sort of comment on one of their pieces of on their posts, and they came back and said, look, it's, I really appreciate you putting a comment. So they gave me this detailed answer about how they were winning, consistently growing. And I thought, if you want to stand out, do something that other people aren't doing. It's providing comments, and it's doing that consistent cadence of content as Greg mentioned earlier, constantly talks about solving the problems that they have, or talking about the challenges and ways to approach things, which is really like it's like the wax on your car. It's like that last layer that has that sparkle, and that really allows you to stand out. If you're doing the consistent posts and you're also commenting, you're giving yourself more chance if you're going to be doing the consistent outreach. So, so those sort of key things. Now, I think we've also got another question here, Greg. A question. So Dave talks about, so what kind of comment performs really well on LinkedIn? So it's a good one. And I think it's, if we're talking about consulting and professional services, I mean, I've got a certain view on it. I'll just share mine very quickly. I feel like you need to test a number of different things. If you're fine on video, doing things like this, do some short 30 to 60 second video snippets. If you like writing, great. Write a LinkedIn newsletter, or do a short post. If you into images, then why not try and provide some graphics and some images? But I think for me, there's no one set type of content. I think you need to experiment, but also you've got to find what works for you and something you can do consistently and at scale. Because if you hate writing and you're trying to churn out 2 to 3 posts a week, then you're not going to get very far. What's your view, Greg?
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. There's horses for courses. I think if you're great on video, use video. If you got a face for radio, then maybe writing's your game. Definitely written posts, but ideally a combination of those two media, very valuable. So writing and video. But one thing I just heard yesterday, and LinkedIn changes its algorithms and changes what it does quite frequently. And for a long while, the longer form article posts that they used to be quite prominent in the Pulse section, it was called back then. Yes. They went quiet and got very little reach, very little engagement. But they've recently provided the opportunity to present newsletters as style. And, so those longer form articles in the form of a newsletter, which people can actually subscribe to and receive. And ideally you do it weekly. So, again, it does require a commitment. So if you're not willing to make that commitment, don't bother. But if you feel like you can write, an article, and it doesn't have to be, a 3-page article. It can be, half a page, as long as it's valuable content that people want to know about or hear from you about. Then, creating your newsletter and getting that out to your subscribers once a week is a really valuable way. And it tends to be getting distribution and engagement through LinkedIn more than the articles were even a few weeks ago.
Yes, great point, Greg. The newsletter, it actually comes up on someone's email as well. If they subscribe to it, they get that added notification. And LinkedIn, like any platform, wants you to be on the channel. So if it's something new and they want people to use it, then there's more chance that they're going to sort of promote it and promote your content. So that's a great addition. So I reckon we're almost out of time. So I want to thank you for watching and listening. We've covered, I guess, the key things around how to win clients on LinkedIn through authority positioning. It's that profile, having a strong profile that's client-centric. We talked about a couple of things around that. The outreach, the connections, don't be spammy, be valuable. And really the third was around content. Think about the consistency, solve the problems that your clients have, but also consider adding some comments to be super valuable and visible. So, thank you for watching. Now, Greg, where can we find you?
Okay, well, naturally on LinkedIn. Just search for Greg Roworth on LinkedIn and I'll come up fairly prominently. And also my website, businessflightpath.com. And, speaking of content, obviously we couldn't tell you everything that we know today in half an hour. So there's plenty more content if you want to continue the conversation and learn more about the whole process of becoming an authority in your market, then hop onto the website and there's plenty of free content that you can get access to from there.
Awesome. You can find me Andy Marmont on LinkedIn, or our website is concurve.com.au. Special thanks to Sarah Higgins for helping set us up, as always. And thanks again. This has been a LinkedIn Live version of the Accepted Authority podcast. We'll see you next time.